All right, let's talk about triads. So triads are a lot of fun and they can really help open up the fretboard for you. So that's what I want to talk about today, is really how they can start opening up the fretboard and make you understand it better. The chord progression that we're playing is A, E, F sharp minor to D, and what that is it's a 1, 5, 6, 4 chord progression in the Nashville number system. One great thing to understand is where all these triads are with just one chord. So if you're in the key of A, then you can find the A triads all over the neck. And today we're just going to talk about the D, G, and B triads, but you can do the same type of exercise for the G, B, and high E triads and play those as well. But you know, they're all built off of these cage shapes. So if you learn the cage system, it teaches you all the different inversions up the neck that you can play. So it's all the different shapes of the chord, and you can play it right up the neck in all of the positions. Your pentatonic scale links to all your cage shapes, and your triads are all within those cage shapes. So when you take a cage shape, like let's just move up and take this C-shaped E chord, and you have that C shape out of your cage system, right? Well, that's just built off, like, it's just stacked triads. And what I mean by that is you have a triad here, you have a triad here, and you have a triad here. So you have 3 different triads within that shape, and they stack on top of each other to make those larger cage shapes. And the reason that's helpful is because if you know how to play something up the neck, you can find the corresponding triad with that larger cage shape. But if you're just going to take an A chord and you're going to try and figure out your A triads up the neck, well, you have this A shape right here. Well, you have triads out of that. You have this triad, which is what I was playing. You have this triad. And you can play that, and then the next shape out of your cage would be your G chord. Well, your G chord would look like this, or it could look like this. Obviously, if you had like a capo here. And what that means is that you have access to these notes down here. And you can add those in. You have triad here, that's built off of this shape, or you have it here. And then the next shape's your D shape, which can be played like this. So you have a triad here, here, then your C shape. And you can basically just play all over the neck with these triads. And once you start learning where they are for just one chord, right? The reason that's helpful is because you know your songs in the key of A. So if I go find an A up the fretboard, then I can find the other chords from my chord progression up the fretboard. So if you're, you know, dancing around and you're playing just the A chord, and I have my favorites, which is, you know, this A shape, this E shape, and the C shape are my favorites on the D, G, and B string. So we're going to focus on those, right? So say you got a rhythm guitar player who's just playing this. The worst thing you can do in a band is play that exact same thing. The second worst thing you can do in a band when you have a bass player or a full band is just go play the bar chords up the neck. But it's better than playing the same thing. See, and that's not going to sound bad. The thing is, you're just going to have a lot of bass notes between your rhythm guitar player, yourself, and the bass player. So to get out of everybody's way, it'd be very helpful if you could come up here and do something like this. And it's going to sound good, and it's going to impress your friends. I mean, that's what we're going for here. So it's going to impress your bandmates. They're going to appreciate it. They're going to appreciate it. And the way you find these, right, is If you start thinking about the Nashville number system, it can be very helpful because everything in music is built off of intervals. All your scales are built off intervals, and you can build those chords off intervals. And the Nashville number system's just numbers of the chords within the scale degrees. So it can be very helpful. But whenever you have a 1 chord, your 4 and your 5 are right next to it. So you can always go 1, 4, 5, or you can go 1, 5, 4. So in either direction, you can either go 1, 4, 5 or 1, 5, 4. Think of your 1 chord as like the equator, and you can go on either side of it. And the reason that's super helpful is because you could play this chord progression like this. And that'll get you there, but you're doing a little bit of movement, which it's not a lot of movement, but if you want to just be real lazy, keep your hand in the same spot, then when you have a 1 chord, your 1 and your 4 share notes, and your 1 and your 5 share notes. So if you can understand that, then when you're playing a 1 chord, your 4 is always going to be higher than it and sharing a note. Well, your 1 and your 5 share a note as well, so your 5 is always going to be lower than it. So to be real lazy, you can know that your A is here, while your E is here. Whenever you have this E shape, since your root is on the 5th fret, well, your C shape out of your cage system also has a root on the 5th fret. So you can always, you don't have to play this whole shape. You can just play this triad shape of it. Which in this instance for an E chord, it's going to be on your D, G, and B string, it's going to be 6, 4, 5. And that is very helpful to play that shape. It sounds great. And then the one shape that's probably not as familiar is this F sharp minor triad. And what this is built off is your C caged as well, because you have an F sharp minor right here. Well, when you have a C caged shape in minor, basically you just flatten your major third. So instead of being like this, that would be a F sharp major chord. You just move down what is considered, well, your D string, which is got to be flattened. So you need to move it down from your 8th fret to your 7th fret. So you have to change your fingering on this. And what this is it's going to be 7, 6, 7 on your D, G, and B string. And then what's cool is your 6 and your 4 share notes, so you can just take that A shape that we played up here, play it on the 7th fret on your D, G, and B string, and there you have that D chord. So it's just and you can do this in any key. It works in any key. So let's say we wanted to change this to the key of B, right? It's still going to be a 1, 5, 6, 4 chord progression, and you would just shift it down to where your B chord is. So it's those same shapes, and now basically you know where your B chord is, you know how to find those other chords around it. And say you wanted to play up in a higher register, this is your A chord right here. And that's because your A is rooted on the 5th fret. That's part of your C shape, right? So you take that little shape right there. We know we have an E right here. So we're just barring the 9th fret there. This is the same shape as the E chord we played up here. And then here's where you know you have an F sharp minor right here. Well, just take your index finger off and you have this little A minor shape, right? So you're to your D, and your D is just part of this larger D chord. This can be a ton of fun. You can do a ton of stuff with this, but I would suggest that you take this idea, and what you do is any chord progression you have. You know a song, take a chord progression and try and find it up the neck. Because you're gonna start relating these shapes together, right? And you're playing the same shapes, they're just different. Like here you're playing this shape, you're playing that shape, which doesn't repeat, but then you're playing this shape. Down here, you're playing this shape, same as your E. You're playing this shape, same as your D in the prior chord progression. So you're playing. Then you're changing out your F sharp minor shape, and then you're going straight to this D chord, which is the same as the A that we played. So the shapes end up just repeating all over the place. It's just what position are you in is where you want to pick what shapes you're going to play. And I hope this is helpful, and I really think it's a great idea for you to take, you know, it doesn't have to be an A chord, but take an A chord and then work out these different triad shapes. Do it with your other shapes too. You have your C chord. You can use your triads to understand the fretboard, and once you start understanding how they relate to your cage shapes, how they relate to your scales, you're gonna be sitting pretty. You're gonna be pretty happy with yourself. And then the next step is just to learn your intervals of your scales, and then, you know, sky's the limit. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.